Okay, sorry everybody. I'm gonna give a minute for people to hopefully find this new live because the last one, they changed how we set it up, and so it didn't let me. It didn't show me that I needed to set up the orientation of the view here um, while I was setting up the live. So now I'm on a new one and I'm gonna go put a comment on the other one. Nope, I can't do that. Hold on just a second. Stay with me. Hopefully people are finding. Big oops. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm just gonna wait a minute and hope that people find me. Oh, I see 2 people. That's good, that's good. Sorry, the last one ended up going in the other view and that was not gonna work. So I am, hopefully people will find me here, there, and let's see. Hello. I see 4 people. Okay, Sarah, thank you. I see 4 people. I had 8 on the last one and I made a comment. Hopefully they'll be able to see it at some point saying, go find my link. I just ended up getting it started super quickly, this second one. I couldn't edit the orientation. Sorry. So sorry. All right. Getting lit up here. These lives are always fun with all my technical difficulties, and there's always something, and then that's too bright. And then there's a delay, so me trying to see what the light just did, there's a delay with that kind of stuff. I don't think that light's helpful at all. I'm gonna turn that light off. Oh, it popped right up for you, Sarah. Okay, that's good. That's good. Hello from Seaside. I was just in Seaside last week, all week. All right, it's only 9:03. I'm gonna give a few minutes. I know when it's time to watch these recordings that this can be, you know, just kind of like, all right, get on with it. I don't know, people have mixed feelings about watching recordings of lives. But I tried to record this and I was just like, you know what? I want to do this live with everybody. There's reasons for doing it live and reasons for not doing it live. Like for today, we're going to do 1 flower and then we're going to duplicate it a lot. But when you're doing it on your own, you can make more flowers so it'll look better. But doing it live, we'll just use duplicates and it'll be great. I might count as 2, but I'm not sure I have it on my PC and chat. Oh, that's okay. It doesn't matter to me how many people are here. I just am really bummed that I goofed with the link, the setup. And so now that link is out there everywhere and it's not accurate. So, oh well, they'll find it eventually. Well, let's go ahead and get started. So this palette is actually on my website now for newsletter freebies. There's a whole bunch of newsletter freebies. So you can definitely get that at another time. If you don't have it already, I just posted it. I'm gonna plug my mic in. Can you, that's better? Is that better? And the Poppy palette is a newsletter freebie, and it's posted just today. And you can just kind of play it by ear during this live, and there's no special brush for this lesson. We're going to be doing this outline separate from the fill, and we're going to be learning about threshold and color fill, actually color drop, maybe there's two different ways, and things like that, reference layer. So there's a lot to cover, but I'll go slow enough that anyone can do it, hopefully, I'm pretty sure. And then it's actually two patterns because the outline is separate. And with the outline being separate, what that allows you to do is have completely different looks. So, for example, now I can have a look that is totally different with a lighter outline and a different colored background. And then it also allows you, I have this on a separate layer because, and I'll explain it later. This one that I don't use any outline for, this allows you to have the background color shine through where the outline would be. And so we're going to do it this way. It might be a full hour, but with the duplicating of, using one flower and duplicating it, like we're not going to have these types of flowers. We're just going to have something more like this today while you're following along. And then you can just do this on your own, adding more flowers later and redo the whole thing, which I know sounds daunting if you're a beginner, but it's actually really good for you to do that. I'm going to turn my light up a little bit more. It's actually really good for you to do that because it helps you remember. And I'm actually going to turn my room light on as well. It's dark here. It's 9 p.m. So, well, it's 9 p.m. Well, if you're here, I know several of you are actually, a couple of you are here on my same time zone. Sarah is, and Christina in Seaside. We had our first beach fire in recent years when we went down there. Okay, so let's get started. I use 12-inch canvases, so depending on your iPad, you might want to go down to a 10-inch canvas. You want to get at least 30 layers, and it really depends on how much RAM is on your iPad. So let's tap the plus sign and the plus sign again, and go to, I like to go to color profile and make sure that I'm on this very first sRGB because display P3 is for Apple products. Like it's for viewing on Apple screens. Dimensions, I go to inches and go to 12 and 12 by 12 at 300 dpi, and tap done. So I like to add a couple of layers. Also, when you're here live, you can ask questions in the chat, and I will stop every few minutes and see if there's any questions that I need to answer. I don't like to stop every single time there's a question, just because it's just too interrupted that way. But definitely ask questions or let me know if you get behind and you need me to slow down. So I just added a few layers just because that's part of my workflow. So you don't have to. And let's go ahead and just draw our first flower. I'm in the calligraphy section of brushes, and I'm just going to grab the chalk just because it's a sketchier instead of a pencil. And I'm going to make a flower that's kind of about a quarter of the page. So make a big circle just for a bit of a guide for yourself. And because I can't see that very well on that layer, I could label it, but I like to just alpha lock it. You can tap alpha lock right there, or you can 2-finger swipe to the right to undo and redo alpha lock. And that just means I'm not going to end up accidentally doing any of my final art on that layer. So that's my little protection for myself. I'm going to turn the opacity down a little bit and go to a different layer. For this, you can use any sketchy brush you want. I am kind of poppy inspired. That's that poppy pattern. I'm calling it a poppy pattern, but it's kind of just poppy inspired. And I'm going to do sort of a bit of a star in the middle with some lines. These are just my sketch lines here. And then a little whoop-de-whoop-de-woo around it like that. And then a wavy, wavy, wavy. So this is just how I'm making this flower for this lesson. You can make them in a lot of different ways. This is kind of a fantasy floral, and we're not looking at a reference photo or anything like that. And then I'm thinking about how many leaves I want. Poppies have 4 leaves, but I might do 5. And I'm just gonna put some guidelines on here for myself that are somewhat eyeballed evenly. And that way I know that when I'm kind of drawing my petal, I'm not going crazy making it too thin or too wide like that. And so just kind of come up, you can have the petals touching in this area or have them separate, but just kind of make a wavy petal just for today. It's just some fun, relaxing art. And the other thing to think about with these is no detail, really hardly any detail at all. So that big circle and little circle were just my guides for this, so that I didn't make a really long petal. I don't like this last petal. And we're going to be using the monoline pen. This is still just a sketch. I don't need that guide anymore, so I can just delete that layer. And now this is my sketch layer. And I'm going to turn the opacity down and add a layer above it. And we're going to do some little stamen in the middle too, but we're keeping things fairly simple. Think about almost like a stained glass window where you're going to have dragging and dropping and filling colors so that you don't want a lot of teeny, teeny, tiny details when you're doing that. Yeah. So if you go to, stay in this calligraphy section, go to the monoline brush. If you're in a different brush set, go to calligraphy and go to monoline. And I usually play around with the settings on the monoline brush, but just for this, I'm gonna just leave it alone. I'm thinking about how thick I want my line. I'm on black. If I have little tiny stamen in here, if I have too thick of a line, I'm not gonna be able to see the centers. The line's gonna be really overpowering. But if I have too thin of a line, then it's going to be too skinny at the end. So just kind of play around with where you might want your size. I'm at about 11%. If your DPI is different, or if your canvas size is different, that percentage is going to be different. So if you have a 12-inch canvas at 300 DPI, then you should be about the right size if you're following exactly what I'm doing. For these little centerpieces, I'm just making them filled in as black. You could keep them hollow like this. Whoops, I don't know how I switched to white. You can just keep them filled in. So I'm making kind of little seed shapes. When I'm doing outline work that I know is going to stay and be visible, I try to keep the little ends to be a little bit clean, right? So It'll be really obvious later as we trace this flower. So I'm just gonna, whoops. You know what, let's up the streamline on this if your hand is being a little too jittery like mine. So if you tap on the brush, then right here, stabilization, streamline is high, but let's bump stabilization up, maybe like 30%. And that'll help you get nice smooth lines. So where my lines meet, where they start and where they meet, like a circle like that, if I have it meeting in a not so great way like that, I'm gonna want to touch that up. If I have two lines meeting and they're, I don't know, I'm trying to make it not look like the monoline brush. If I have one that bumps out a little like that, I'm gonna erase and I'm gonna spend some time. You're gonna see this outline. So you want it to look nice. You want it to have that final look, the final finished look, and not have it be a quick, you don't want it to look quick. So I just ended that in a rough way, and then I'm going to tap and hold the eraser so that I'm now on my same brush as the eraser. And I'm just going to erase it. When I'm erasing, I'm kind of going along like that. So it tries to maintain the smooth edge and the thickness is consistent for that monoline. So now I'm going to trace my petals, and I'm not adding any lines like this, like you would normally want to do on flower petals, just because it ends up being a little too busy in the end. But later, definitely experiment with that. And I'm checking my ends. The other thing we need to do is make sure we have closed shapes. So if your shape is open like this, then when we drag and drop color later, it's not going to work. So all of our little starts and finishes of every single line needs to have a nice closed finish and start. All right, how's everybody doing? Let me know in the chat if you need me to slow down. Once you get all of that traced, you can turn your sketch off. You could delete your sketch too. I'm gonna alpha lock it and just leave it there, pretend like it's not there. I might need it later. And then you can come in and clean things up. I might clean up this little bump here too. Just make it a little less like a bump. You're gonna hear dogs barking. All right, and I'm gonna add some pistils and stamen. I'm just checking it. The chat is making, so for Adventures from Canada, the chat is blocking part of your word. It says, how may we, and then I can't see the word, and then I can see your drawings. So I don't know, how may we what? So for the pistils and stamen, I am going to come up from, whoop, Procreate just undid. I'm going to come up from the little whoop-de-woo line down here just because I like the look of it. So I'm making some lines like this, and they can be wonky. I would make them different lengths, and then you're putting little stamen at the end, and this is where you want to be a little bit careful with how you're making your circles or whatever shape you're using. You can use whatever shape you want. If you're just now joining and you found me through the other link, sorry about the technical difficulties. All right, so I'm gonna do 2 or 3 in each section, trying to make sure I avoid this sort of connecting line that looks like the round end of the monoline brush. Making sort of squashed circles for my stamen here, cleaning up the inside. One of the things about doing the outlines like this is what we're going to do with this later, we can't make big changes very easily. So you really want to make sure that you have it in the finished form. It's probably a good idea that we're doing just one today and then we're going to duplicate it, because you're going to get to the end and you're going to go, oh, you know what? I think that looks too busy. I'm going to redo that with less lines. Or I think that line is too thin, or I think that line is too thick, or the petals need to be a different way. There's going to be a change that you're going to see at the end once you learn the whole process, where you're going to want to apply that to all of the flowers that you end up doing. And we'll learn all our lessons here on this first one. Instead of you going through and making 4 or 5 flowers right now, and then later at the end realizing that you should have done them differently and having to redraw all 5 of them. So we're just going to do one. If you were doing this at home later after you learn tonight and try your hand at it tomorrow or later, you can just kind of have them all here. I like to do them all in little sets of 2 layers each. So that's what we're going to do now. I'm just kind of blabbing on and on while you guys finish your outline. So here's my outline, and I'm going to add a layer underneath it, and I'm going to group them. So later when you're doing this, and we don't need any stems right now, but later when you're doing this, have each flower in its own group like this. They can all still be on this page, but just kind of have them all in their own groups. All right, so now it's time to learn about reference layer and threshold. So, can't see this very well on screen, sorry about that. We're gonna turn this outline layer into a reference layer by tapping it and tapping reference. And all that means is Procreate's going to pretend like you're dragging and dropping to that layer, but you can do it to a different layer. So go down to the layer below, and you can drag and drop color. Don't do it yet though, but you can drag and drop color here, and if you drop it right here, it's just gonna fill in that one petal because it's referencing that layer up there. But we need to set the threshold. So I have the Poppy palette, again, that's in my newsletter when you want to get it later. And we're just gonna use pick like 3 similar shades of red. So I'm just gonna pick the middle one. You can see what I've got here. It doesn't matter what colors. Also, when you're picking your colors for your flowers, it's good to know what your background color is going to be first, because it does make your color choices different. I'm going to keep a white background on right now, but you might want to change your background color if you need to. So I'm going to drag and drop one and leave my pencil down, and it fills, and then I have the ability to change my threshold here. If you go all the way up, it's going to fill the whole page. If you go down too far, it's going to leave a halo around the edge. I usually am around 97 or 98%. And that really depends on the brush that you've used for this outline layer. We use the monoline brush, so it's super easy to do threshold changes and to do color drop. But that's also why we had all of the shapes closed, no openings. So that this step works. So what threshold is doing is tucking this color in under that black line a little bit. So if you turn that black line, watch this, if you turn that black line, this looks terrible, super duper pixelated, because it's just hiding that red under there so that there's no white halo showing from this background color coming up through. So that's good. And you only need to adjust the threshold the one time for the canvas. So now I'm going to drag and drop again and just let go, but then tap continue filling. And now we're on color drop. which is different from the color fill that's on this bottom menu. And now I can go through and I can change colors and tap, and change colors and tap. I could change my mind about this one and tap. Anything you want to do. I'm going to get a brighter one again over here. You could do these on separate layers as well. You'll just have to start color fill again. So if you add another layer before you start this center area, you could drag and drop color and do the color fill again. I'm just going to do everything on one layer. I'm picking some really dark browns to fill in this outer ring here. So I'm just tapping. If you accidentally tap on the line, you'll need to undo with a 2-finger tap. It'll be obvious. It'll kind of show a weird line there. Tap, tap, tap. And I do want to fill in all my stamen. So I'm going to just go to maybe like this creamy white here and try to tap inside those without tapping the lines. Try to make sure I'm getting every single one. I could zoom in as well, and then also watching up here to make sure I'm not accidentally doing undo with my wrist. And then I'm going to pick a teal, but I'm going to go a little bit bluer and brighter for this center. There we go. Anything you want. This is darker than what I'm seeing on my screen. So all right. I think that's good for my flower. And I'm going to tap brush to get rid of this color drop here. How's everybody doing? Or hopefully everyone's following along. All right. So because we are only using one flower for this live and we're duplicating it, we don't need to make any more flowers. When you're at home, make a variety of flowers, and you can also rotate and flip and make them look a little different. So now it's time to make the repeat pattern, and I'm going to go to the wrench tool, go to Canvas, turn on Drawing Guide, edit Drawing Guide, and make my grid size to max, and tap Done. And then that's just showing me where the centers are, and we're doing a basic repeat pattern, so we just need to know where the centers are because we're going to be basically cutting these lines after we get the first few flowers on, and we need to know exactly where those lines, the cut lines, are. Remember, we can't crop, we can't place things. I'm going to close this and duplicate it and turn one off. So that's the original. If we have something go off the edge, it's going to crop. I'm going to turn snapping off. If you have snapping on, you might want to turn it off right now. If you deselect this, it's going to crop. So remember not to do that, but you can get really close to the edge. And I am going to not place like 4 flowers in a cross here. I'm kind of thinking about them kind of a little bit like at an angle. So I'm going to have one over here, and I'm only trying to move them about 1 or 2 times. I'm going to duplicate the original and turn that next one on and rotate it a bit. You could do freeform and squash it a bit. Don't do too much, just because Procreate, it gets a little fuzzy if you do that too much. I'm going to put one over here. I am going to duplicate my original again and turn that one on. Put one down here. Make sure it's in a different orientation from that one. I think I might go ahead and make these all a little smaller. or maybe not all of them. How about just a couple of them? So I'm going to put this one up here a little bit and move that first one over. So when you're thinking about repeat patterns, this tile is going to duplicate down here and on the sides. So this flower is going to end up being right here. So I don't want it to be perfectly aligned with that one, and the same thing going from top to bottom. So I'll just move this one down a little bit more. And I think I am going to put one more down here. So I duplicated my original again and turned it on. Going to rotate and shrink. Bring it in down here, making sure it's not perfectly aligned with that one either. So maybe I'll bring it way over here. Maybe I'll bring that one over that way a little bit. And that ends up being kind of a lot of moves. If I'm moving them straight across and up and down, it's then not rotating and changing the size. It does a better job at that. All right, so you can see this one is lower. If you look at the center, compared to the line here, this one's much lower than the center line. This one's kind of right on the line. This one's way over to the right. This one's to the left. So when this pattern repeats, they won't be just making a perfect line. And then these corners are all going to merge into one space in the center after this next step. And when that happens, we'll be able to fit another flower. If you started with smaller flowers, then you will be able to fit more than one flower. But for this amount of space that we have, probably just one more flower. So the other thing you need to think about at this stage is your stems and leaves. Anything that is along these lines needs to be done at this stage. So this flower is probably going to have a stem coming down and leaves kind of filling in this space. For these two flowers, I can do that later. I can come down from that later because we're only worrying about this line and this line. And I think I can worry about this flower later as well. So let's just worry about this flower. So the easiest way to do this is to actually get your flowers all onto one layer now and get your outline layers all onto one layer now. So if you open these groups and tap on a flower, the group was highlighted, so definitely just tap on a flower, swipe right on the other flowers, and let's drag them up and out of the group up here and drop them, and then you can just merge them. And let's do the same thing for the outline. Tap on the outline and swipe right on the other four so they're all blue, and hold and drag. We need the outline to be above the color layer, and then merge those. Then we have all these empty groups. I like to make sure they're truly empty by turning them off. And can I merge them? No, but I can delete them. Swipe left, delete. And I have my original here. So now I have my outline layer here on this layer and my color layer here on this layer. I am going to turn the color layer off right now so I can really see what I'm doing with my outline. And I'm going to go back to black, and I'm on that monoline brush. Oh, you know what's a really good idea is to save your size. So if you tap the monoline brush where you had it set, you can tap this plus sign. And now you've got a saved setting so that if you end up changing the size of that and you want to come back and work on this some more, then you know that you were at 11% right there. So now I want to draw a stem. So I'm on my outline layer and I want to add, you could sketch this step first if you want, but I'm just going to draw kind of coming from the center and curving over. I want to curve. I don't like super straight lines and stuff like this. So I'm just thinking about a stem that it ends mysteriously under that petal. You don't need to keep going with it. I don't want the stem to be too thin because I want to be able to see the color fill. Oh, sorry, something really loud just happened upstairs. All right, and then I'm just doing kind of fun leaves too. So I'm just kind of wavy lines like this, and then you can fill in those lines with more lines. I want to make sure that I am cleaning up these edges. You can make your leaves however you want. I'm thinking about spaces for color, different shades of green and teal and blue, right? So I want to have more than just one big solid chunk. And I need some cleanup here. And I don't want too tiny of spaces either. Finish up that line a little bit better. So now you can see we pretty much have this whole vertical and horizontal line filled. And now we're ready for the next step. Oh, we have to do the color section still. So let's fill our color now for this green. So we're gonna tap on that outline layer and turn on reference here now. And then we're gonna go turn the color layer on, go to the color layer, and we're gonna drag and drop and fill our stems. So if you have the palette, you can use these. Drag and then continue filling. Whoops. I'm not sure what happened there. my Mac screen just turned itself off. And my Procreate just did something weird. Continue filling. Whatever colors you want. All right. So far so good. Good, good, good. All right, so now we need to make 4 copies of each of these. So this is where it becomes a double pattern. We're gonna do the color layer, and then we're gonna do the outline layer. So let's go ahead and do turn the outline layer off. And on this color layer, I'm gonna duplicate, I'm gonna need to add corner marks. So if you're not familiar with my corner mark method, this is just the way to get Procreate to select the whole canvas size when you tap select. Otherwise, it just goes to the edge of whatever you have on the canvas, on that layer. So corner marks in opposing corners, not overlapping your art at all, so that you have ink to the edges of all 4 sides. And now we need 4 duplicates, plus keep the original just because we don't want to mess that original up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have this original I'm going to turn off. And that we can drag down here and just kind of hide it away. We don't need that right now. It's just kind of in case of emergencies later. And then we're going to drag a full-size image, each of these 4, to the 4 corners with snapping turned on. So tap on one of the layers, tap on the arrow, and then tap snapping and turn on snapping. I keep distance at max and velocity at 5. You should be able to very easily drag it to a corner where you have gold lines in both directions here, and then let go. While it's still selected, if you tap the screen, it's going to nudge it 1 pixel. So Oh, Gabby stopped by to say hi at 6:30 in the morning. Thanks, Gabby. So don't nudge the pixel, don't nudge the selection. Deselect it once you have those gold lines in both directions. And then grab another one and move it to another corner. Doesn't matter what order. If you're having a hard time getting your gold lines, turn off the layers and do one layer at a time. So then you would just have one layer moving at a time, and it snaps super easily like this. And then you can turn the 4 layers back on. For the basic repeat, we can merge those 4 layers now, and we can use select and just kind of freehand select these corner marks that are now in the middle and just drag them right off the screen. And that's the first step for the pattern, for the color version. Now let's turn that off and turn on the outline version. Let's turn reference off so we don't go crazy later with that. And we need corner marks on this now. Big corner marks. And we need 5 so that we can tuck away the original. I'm going to drag the original down and turn it off. And now we can drag these 4 to the 4 corners, making sure you get your gold lines and making sure you're dragging full-sized images. Don't grab too close to the blue nodes. You can also grab outside the canvas. If you grab close to the blue node, it'll shrink the image. We'll do that later. Merge those together by pinching. Select and get rid of the center marks, the corner marks that are now in the center. All right, now we have our finished edge areas on the outline layer and the color layer. And now we need to finish the center and add more stems and things to these, and maybe those poppy head seed heads too. I know we're now at 9:43, so it might be a little long. Hopefully it'll be okay for everybody. Okay, so I have my original flower down here. I'm going to duplicate it so I don't use my original and turn it on. It's not in the layer order that I want it to be at this moment. If I don't turn off snapping, it's not going to let me put it exactly where I want it. So I'm going to turn off snapping. We'll have to turn that back on later. And I'm going to just give it a rotate. I'm kind of looking at the other flowers and making sure they're all in a little bit of a different rotated position. If you joined us late, it's we're just using one flower for this lesson, but at home later in your own time, definitely make more than one. All right, so get that into position, and then we can go ahead and drag our outline layer up and drag our flower layer up. And then we have this empty group again. We can delete it. Don't delete that original. And then you can merge the 2 colorful layers and merge the 2 outline layers with your new added flower there. And now we just need to do the same thing that we did on our stem when we did the stem. So I'm going to turn the color off so that we can really see the outline really well. And I'm going to go to the outline layer and go to black. And I'm going to add some more stems and leaves. If you want to add a seed pod, here's how, let's do that. So find a spot where you can end a stem under a petal like this. So you can have the stem coming up right from a petal. You don't want to go off an edge like this. And you can make a little kind of crescent at the end like this. However you want to do this. This is just the way that I showed in the example, or the image that I showed, the cover image that I showed for this lesson. And then make a big, however big you want your sort of seed pod. Those probably have a name. The simplest way is to kind of boop, 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 and then maybe like that. For me, the trickiest way is to try to make this shape again. Kind of like, I don't know, something like that. I don't know why this is so tricky. There we go. That's good. And you can do whatever you want in here. You could make little lines in here. Poppies tend to have those. And then draw some lines. Oops, I have a incomplete little line there. Making sure your spaces are all closed and your edges, ends and starts of your lines are neat. And just draw some lines that you can have fun playing with color. Also, making these a little bit more curved like this, like a candy cane at the top, is also fun because that's kind of what they look like. All right, so I'm thinking about where I can hide. I can't bring a stem down off the page here because it won't repeat up there. Right now we have our repeating pattern on the edges. You can see this flower is repeating over here, this flower is repeating down here, and so on. So we can't add anything to the edges right now. So all my stems and everything are gonna just kind of conveniently hide under another petal, like that. I can think about using these fun leaves to just fill in space. You can have things overlapping and touching. If you're going to overlap something that's already on there, you'll have some erasing to do and things like that. So you also don't have to have a stem coming down from every single flower. That's just a design choice that you can make. I've been making some of them have a pretty wide top area of the stem like this, kind of like a funnel, and then having a little line and having some more lines like this up here just so I can add some more colors with the color drop. That's kind of fun, but I like to be consistent. So since I wasn't doing that with the other ones, I probably won't do that on this particular pattern. I'll just bring a stem up. And I'm also thinking about what direction the stems are aiming and where they need to kind of radiate from the center there. I'm going to leave this one without a stem. Actually, you know what? I think I am going to add a stem so I can add a little flower right there. Procreate keeps undoing. Who has the new iPad? And are you struggling with the new pencil? This isn't the new one. But I'm hearing about some struggles. All right. Hopefully everybody is able to get some leaves on their page here. Get this cleaned up. I would normally probably spend some time adding more than one seed head, but since this is running long, I'm on eraser. Since it's running long, I'm going to just keep it that one, just to show you how to do it. All right, I'm not going to add a leaf to this one since that seed head is there. So now we need to turn reference layer on, reference, and turn our color layer back on. Go down to the color layer and start dragging and dropping and filling with the same colors that you used last time. So fill the first one and tap continue filling, and then go through and have fun. Oops, I just tapped the outline. So I'm going to 2-finger undo. I'm just looking at the colors in my color history here. Trying to remember which colors I used. I think I need more teal over here. Make sure you're not forgetting any spaces. Yep, I guess that one needs to be teal also. Here we go. How's everybody doing? I see a little spot I want to clean up on that layer. And since it's on the outside of it doesn't have color fill in there, I can clean that up still. All right. So this is your finished 1x1. We need to check our pattern. I don't need these lines on anymore. I can turn those off by tapping the wrench tool, canvas, drawing guide. And this ideally is, for me, a pattern that will have a darker background. I'm not sure Zoom is going to enjoy my color choices here. Sometimes when it's too dark, it goes a little wiggy. So we'll give it a try. But you need to check your pattern. You need to make sure that you have a seamless pattern. And so we have two patterns here. We have the outline and the color. And our outline layer is hiding all of that jaggedy edge. I'm going to go back to white because it's easier to see. Our outline is covering all of that right now, and we're going to deal with that later. But first we want to check our pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate the outline layer. Let's turn reference off. I'm going to duplicate. Let's turn the color layer off. Duplicate, duplicate, and make sure I have 5. So I have the original that I can turn off. And now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 that I'm swiping right on, and then tapping the arrow for select, turning, snapping back on, and grabbing a blue node this time. I am going to shrink the blue node till it snaps in the center, and it should give you the dimensions that are exactly half of whatever your canvas size is. And now move one layer at a time, so tap on one so they're not all 4 highlighted, to each corner, and they should snap right into the corners. So this is a way to check your seams. You're going to toggle these on and off and zoom way in and make sure that you don't have any big offsets like this or pixel gaps where you have a white line showing through. And that looks good. You're going to check it along both here. I'm going to merge, and now I have that 2x2 of my outline layer there, and I have the 1x1 here. I'm going to do the same thing with the color layer. So let's turn that on and duplicate. So I have a total of 5. Turn one of them off. Swipe right on the other 4 so they're all blue. Tap, select. We don't need our corner marks at this stage because we have ink to all the sides. So if you didn't, for whatever reason, you would want to put a little corner mark on whatever side you didn't have ink going all the way to the edge. I'm going to shrink those get the gold lines, move one to each corner. Zoom way in, toggle, toggle, check, check, make sure it's seamless, and merge those four. All right, I'm just gonna get a little organized over here. I'm gonna move this layer to directly under the outline layer that matches it right there, and I'm gonna group those. So that's our 2x2 of our pattern, and turn that off. And now we have the other two, the 1x1 of our pattern. I'm going to select both of those layers and group those. All right, we're almost done. We're basically done. You can work with either of these two. These are both perfectly good patterns. If you really need a larger scale, you're going to want to use the 1x1. But you can work with either of these two to do this next step. I'm going to do this 2x2. So I've got my group that's the 2x2. This is my final thing for when I want to use the outline in my final work. Oh my goodness, something didn't line up. Do you see that offset in the color layer compared to the outline layer? So I need to go back. I'm going to delete that. That didn't work. I need to go back here. It's not happening here, so at some point I must have nudged. So I'm going backwards if you have the same problem. And I'll just go ahead and duplicate this and turn one off so I have these groups. And I'm going to turn off, oh, I just need to do the color layer, I think. Is it that I didn't have ink to all four sides? No, I do. All right. Sometimes troubleshooting is good in these lives because we all will definitely have some need for figuring these types of things out. So I had to go backwards to try to figure out where my problem was. I'm just going to turn the, oh, nope, I got to do the same thing. I thought I kept the other outline layer. So now I'm going to, I'm only making 4 this time because I have the duplicate down here already. So it's a little bit of a different process than what I just showed you. I'm trying to rush here. Snapping, snapping, snapping. This is the first time that's happened. Okay, so it didn't happen this time. I'm not sure what happened there. I must have nudged something over just 1 pixel. So I had a little halo like color, either the color or the outline was shifted. Not sure which one. So I'm going to work with the 2x2 to show you this next step. So you could do this same step for the 1x1 later on your own time if you want. But I'm going to label this one with outline. And I'm going to duplicate it. And then I'm going to label the next one no outline or without outline, just so you can kind of keep track of what you're doing here. Let's turn the with outline off, and now we're on this no outline group. So we can turn off the outline on here. It's super jaggedy and pixely, and it is not as thick as the actual outline. The white areas aren't as thick as the actual outline because the color is kind of tucking under that black outline. So if I turn the outline off, but I tap on it and tap select, and then I go to the color layer and tap on it and tap clear, then it clears everything away where the outline is supposed to be. And I don't need that layer of the outline anymore. This is meant to be used without the outline. The reason why we have it separate from this group down here is because if I were to try to just use this same one and turn the outline off sometimes and turn it on other times, it doesn't really work anymore because we've got these halos now. And that's because we just erased the threshold where our colors were tucked under those lines to prevent the halo. We just erased all of that. So I'm just going to delete the outline on this one. And now I know that this is the one that I want to use if I want all of the outlined areas to show as the same color as my background. So whatever I'm doing for my background, my outline layer, the outline look of everywhere where your outline was, is going to be the same color as the background. So you have that as an option. If we turn that off and we go to the one with the outline, this one is also a really great option because I can duplicate this outline. I'm going to go ahead and make two and turn one of them off. And I'm going to alpha lock it so I can swipe with 2 fingers to the right and get that grid. And now I can change the color of that. So I can, maybe pick this kind of weird brown here. It's kind of a goldy color. And tap on it and tap fill layer. So now the outline is whatever color I choose, and the background is whatever color I choose. And so you have full flexibility with what overall look that you want, with the background and the outline layers being completely separate colors. And then you have as many of those as you want that you can make. You can duplicate this original. I can keep a black version of it. If you like that look as well, black version with maybe a super saturated background. You can play around with these colors. I think that the gold outline kind of gives it more of a Art Nouveau feel. If you pick the right colors, kind of moody. And then if you're not quite, can't quite put your finger on what color to select to then fill that outline layer, make sure alpha lock is on when you fill the layer. But if you can't figure out, that's not quite right, that's not quite the exact shade of that color that I want or whatever, you can select that layer and go to this magic wand tool and go to hue, saturation, brightness, and zoom out or zoom in, whatever you want to do to get the big picture, and play around with it, right? Maybe you want it to be a different color entirely. Maybe you want it less saturated so it's more towards gray, or lighter or darker, right? So you can play around in that way and really fine tune it until you're happy. I believe I have a brush making lesson on my YouTube channel. Pretty sure I do. So you can also turn this into a pattern brush as well. This is done. This is your finished double, your double outline brush or double pattern brush. I'm going to show you really quick the poppy brushes that I've been making with my poppy patterns. So pattern brushes are really nice to have. This isn't a great example using it on a blue background, but pattern brushes are really nice to have for a variety of things actually. I like using them on clothing, and I'll just show you really quick. Oh, that's not it. That's the right art, but that's not the complete art. So like this on her shirt, that's a pattern brush on a clipping mask. So it's just right here. When you use a clipping mask, it only shows up. For here, it's the red shirt, so it's only going to show up on the red shirt. And then because it's a clipping mask and separate, I can change my mind. I can do something entirely different. I can play around with all sorts of ideas. And the other thing I can do is play around with the blend mode and also you can select it and go to warp and move it around a little, or you can go to the magic wand tool and go to liquefy with push on and move it around a little like this too. And that's a nice way to kind of get it to look a little more flowy, like it's moving with the form. So yeah, pattern brushes are great. Lots of uses for pattern brushes. So definitely find the pattern brush lesson on my channel that I'm pretty sure is there. Definitely go find the one I don't know is actually there. I'm pretty sure it is. And learn how to change your either this version or the 1x1 version into a pattern brush. You don't have to make it black and white before you do it. In fact, I'll just show you really quick. 3-finger swipe down and copy all. Once you make your own pattern brush, you can just go into it. I'm going to duplicate this one. You can go into it and go into green and go edit, import, and paste. And it's going to make it grayscale for you. So you can also 2-finger tap to invert whatever you have, or you can make a color version that is the lightness and darkness that you want it to be in its grayscale form, because that will, all the grays will just be transparencies, different transparencies of the color that you have selected. So whatever color you have selected, a gray will show up as a more transparent version of the color. And whatever is black will be the color, the full color, and whatever is closer to white, or white is transparent, so whatever is closer to white will be the most transparent. I think that might be backwards, but something like that. All right, thank you so much for coming, everybody, and sticking around. I'm surprised I got this done in about an hour. I think with our technical difficulties, it was probably about an hour. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Christina. Where in Seaside are you, Christina? We were right in town. We were right on the prom. I'm glad you like it. LMD, your handle. I'm just looking through the chat, make sure I got everything. All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye. I have to figure out how to end this live. They changed it. I actually don't know how to end it. Isn't this funny? I see no options on my screen. Only cancel. Well, hopefully this recording happens. Maybe I'll tap share. Sorry, everybody. I know this is dragging on and on. So this is a bit of a problem, and the problem is that it's going to potentially not save a recording, and that would be a bummer. All right, I'm going to go ahead and click cancel and see what happens. Bye, everybody.